diminutive mechanical hands cling tight to the back of my neck as I struggle to keep up and stick to the book. Stop! No, it's my way or no way. This black and white education system stringently enforces its eat, chew, swallow, and regurgitate information routine onto every pupil. We have been put under constant pressure to succeed and are expected to be nothing less than perfect. Otherwise, we shoot our grades and future down to hell. And of course, there's always my mom's ready tapado chinelas. Slipper in translation. I was born and raised in the Philippines as part of a middle-class family. Not that it matters, but for context purposes, it means that I was fortunate enough to get my foundational education from a prestigious Asian all-girl Catholic school. Back there, poverty is still such a major issue that when it comes to school, you're either receiving decent education from private schools, or you're stuck learning from poorly funded public schools. No judgment there whatsoever, since any form of education is a great thing. But with those being our only options, we were forced to take our education very seriously to the point where we all had to compete instead of grow. Ang swerte mo, anak. You're so lucky, my mom always said, as she casually told me how expensive my tuition was. This statement has and always still makes me wonder why we're willing to lose so much in exchange for an intangible promise of a better life. Growing up, I was always held up in a pedestal by my family. Being the eldest sibling, there would always be those unspoken expectations that I had to meet. For instance, having to follow my family's footsteps by graduating with Latin honors, being active in extracurriculars, choosing nursing as a major, like all my titos and titas, because we can never have too many nurses in this Filipino household. And mainly, just being a person that my two younger brothers could look up to. My parents always made sure that I was on top of my game, so much that they always kept enrolling me in extracurriculars like gymnastics, swimming, music lessons, while also hiring a tutor just to make sure that I stay on top of my classes. Although they told me that my character was more important than my grades, I still felt as if I had to prove myself and avoid disappointing everyone. I felt like I couldn't make a mistake because if I did, I would have wasted my parents' hard work and would end up not being a good role model. I was so anxious to receive bad grades that I always pushed myself to give my very best, even if it meant losing my sanity at times. I guess this really came with a cultural norm that school was such an important part of ourselves as individuals. By this, I mean that we were shaped to think that our success in school predetermines our success in the future, and that my triumphs are my family's triumphs too. There's just that great sense of euphoria you feel when you know that all your hard work and the process that got you your victory is appreciated. While the Philippines may be considered a third world country, education-wise, best believe me when I say that when they go hard on their academics, they go diamond hard. Rock hard is an understatement. So the high expectations and the pressure being pushed onto the students come as a package together with competitiveness, insecurity, and self-doubt. Back in 2015, my glorious 10th grade, I had a god-awful calculus teacher who rarely came to class. She was always absent to the point where if she actually showed up, we debate on whether or not she was just subbing for the actual sub. Finals week was fast approaching and everyone was frantic. I started reviewing about 2 weeks before the exam and I made sure to stay up late every night just to study, create my reviewers, memorize flashcards, color code notes, and so on. However, when the day of the test came, after receiving the paper, I realized that more than half of the questions weren't discussed. Funny enough, moments later, I heard the student behind me give off a faint laugh that became more and more distinct after a solid minute or so. I was panicking. I didn't know how to react, but at the same time, I knew that we were all thinking the same thing. The test was shit, and everyone was most likely gonna flunk it. The week after, we found that only 5 people out of 45 passed the test. And I remember this because when I got home, it was the first time I ever cried because of an exam that I studied really hard for. I felt so ashamed to tell my parents why I got the score because I really thought I gave my best, yet it still wasn't enough. Ayan, bobo ka lang kasi. You're just plain stupid, I thought to myself, as my insecurities at the time got the best of me and had me believe that I just simply was academically inadequate. For a time, I convinced myself that I just simply wasn't smart enough to grasp any information, no matter how hard I tried. I started comparing myself to my peers, started to feel hopeless. It even came to a point where I was so overwhelmed by the pressure that I found solace in self-harm. In my old school, depression and other mental illnesses were such taboos that we would just push it under the rug and pretend that everything was okay. I remember a time where I sat beside this one girl, Ligaya. She was the most smart, pretty, creative, and talented person I knew. She was always participating in class, receiving high grades, going out with her friends, and posting about how great her family is on social media. She was the it girl. That day, she came to class with bandages wrapped around her wrists. At one point, she unraveled it to adjust the tightness, and I saw deep red cuts and scratches. Of course, I asked her where those scratches came from. She smiled and replied, "Oh, they came from my cat while I was trying to give her a bath." Naively, I believed her. I don't know why, but I did. And later that week, she started getting pulled out of class because she had an appointment with a guidance counselor. I just never paid that much attention to it because back in the day, a scheduled visit to our guidance counselors meant a free ticket to skip class. Later in the year, I heard about how that same beautiful girl came to the roof of our English building, standing over the edge in an attempt to jump. Everyone was petrified, while the students and teachers watched as her friends and security guards tried to keep her from taking that leap. She was crying, screaming, barely holding on until one of her friends talked to her, calmed her down, and convinced her to take another chance at life. After the entire incident, the whole school grew silent, afraid even. Considering that our school had such a prestigious and well-rounded reputation, the issue wasn't given as much awareness. We weren't allowed to talk or speak out about what happened inside or outside the classroom, and it felt as if our mouths were being kept shut by our school's fear of its reputation being tarnished. When the news finally reached the public, our school's president declined to answer. Instead, the administration gathered us students and had a counselor come up the stage and give a talk about mental health. All of us students just wanted to feel safe knowing that we could talk about such matters. Instead, we ended up as if we were poking needles through our lips, all bloody and tight in an attempt to sew and patch the hole that's crying out for help. It was all a facade. I took all of this in heavily. I kept thinking about how she seemed like she had the most perfect life and I didn't catch all the signs. She didn't deserve to feel that way. She should have known that she was enough and that a lot of people loved her. I want her to know that I care. I want her to know that she is strong, that she can overcome the obstacles that she is facing. I want her to know that she is not alone. I want her to know that she can hold my hand, cry on my shoulder, and talk to me about anything and everything. I want to save her. Then I thought about myself. All the things that I have been doing to my own body and all the thoughts that have ever crossed my mind pertaining to the same situation. All the times I hesitated to push through and all the times I was grateful to have been a coward. No, brave. Brave enough to choose life. Brave enough to believe that I can get through the next minute. Brave enough to see the next light of day. Brave enough to believe in myself and brave enough to try again. I came to my mom's room one night to talk about everything that had been going on. I wanted to let her see through the two-sided mirror that I had hid behind. Mirrors thick enough to pass as an illusion of flawless joy and contentment. With tears running down my face, I asked for her forgiveness. I didn't really know what I was apologizing for, but "I'm sorry, Ma," were the only words that I could utter. I am and sorry. The three words crawling out of my mouth as my throat grew tighter and tighter, causing me to choke on my own sadness. At that moment, she understood. She held me tight, exactly like how she embraced me when I first sprained my ankle doing gymnastics when I was 5. She bathed me with a feeling of love and support, which I needed immensely. I desperately clung to her as we both talked about life in its bigger picture. And I have always been proud of you, she whispered, while reassuring me that grades don't define who I am in life because it is no one but I. I who defines who I am, and I who decides who I will become.